The Midnight Knock, a ghostly encounter in the woods. Emily and her friends had been looking forward to this weekend for months, a chance to escape the city, to unwind, and to enjoy the peace and solitude of her family's remote cabin deep in the woods. The drive had been long, winding through narrow, tree-lined roads, but the cabin was worth it. Nestled in a clearing, surrounded by towering pines, it was the perfect getaway, isolated and serene. The first evening was spent around the fireplace, the crackling flames casting warm, flickering light across the room. They laughed, shared stories, and marveled at how far away they felt from the hustle and bustle of their daily lives. But as the night deepened, a sense of unease began to creep in. The woods, once a comforting embrace, now felt ominous, the trees looming like silent sentinels. It was just after midnight when it happened. They were settling down, ready to call it a night, when a sudden, loud knock echoed through the cabin. The sound was sharp, insistent, and it seemed to reverberate through the very walls. The group fell silent, each one exchanging puzzled glances. Emily, her heart pounding, got up to check the door. She hesitated for a moment before swinging it open, only to find nothing. The porch was empty, the night still, save for the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Maybe it was just the wind, someone suggested, but the explanation didn't sit right. The knock had been too deliberate, too forceful to be mere wind. They brushed it off, tried to laugh about it, and eventually went to bed, but sleep didn't come easily. The next night, just as they were beginning to relax, the knock came again. Midnight, on the dot. This time it was louder, more demanding. They opened the door, peered out into the darkness, but again, there was no one there. A sense of dread settled over the group, an unspoken fear that something was very wrong. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the cabin was trying to tell her something, that there was a reason behind the midnight knocks. She decided to dig into the cabin's history, something she'd never really thought about before. After all, it had been in her family for generations, a place of happy memories, not fear. But as she searched through old family records and talked to her relatives, a disturbing story began to emerge. Years ago, long before Emily was born, a stranger had appeared at the cabin's door on a stormy night. He was disheveled, desperate, seeking shelter from the raging storm. But for reasons lost to time, he was turned away, sent back into the night. The next morning, his body was found in the woods, cold and lifeless, just a short distance from the cabin. No one knew who he was or where he had come from, and his death was quietly buried in the past. But from that day on, the midnight knock had haunted the cabin, a ghostly reminder of the help that was denied. As Emily pieced together the story, the knocks grew more aggressive, each one sending chills down their spines. Strange things began to happen in the cabin. Objects moved on their own, sliding across tables or falling off shelves with no explanation. Shadows flickered at the edge of their vision, darting away when they tried to focus on them. And then there were the whispers, faint at first, like the wind through the trees, but growing louder, more distinct, filling the air with unintelligible, mournful words. The group was terrified, and no one wanted to stay another night. But Emily knew they couldn't leave, not without confronting whatever was causing the disturbances. The spirit was angry, restless, and it wouldn't stop until it got what it wanted. Acknowledgement, perhaps, or justice for the wrongs done to it. On the third night, Emily decided to face the ghost. As midnight approached, she and her friends gathered in the living room, waiting for the knock that had become all too familiar. When it came, echoing through the cabin with a force that rattled the windows, Emily stood her ground. She approached the door, her hands trembling, and opened it wide. The night was dark, the forest still, but the air was thick with a presence she couldn't see. "I'm sorry," she whispered into the darkness, her voice barely audible. "I'm sorry for what happened to you. You deserved better." For a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no movement. Then, a cold wind swept through the doorway, and the cabin seemed to exhale a long-held breath. The door creaked as it swung open wider, and for just a moment, Emily thought she saw a figure standing at the edge of the porch, a shadowy outline in the gloom. But when she blinked, it was gone. The knocks stopped after that night, and the cabin returned to its peaceful state. But the experience left its mark on Emily and her friends, a reminder that the past has a way of reaching out, even from beyond the grave. They left the cabin the next morning, grateful to be returning to the safety of the city. But the memory of the midnight knock stayed with them, a story they would never forget. As they drove away, Emily couldn't help but glance back at the cabin, half expecting to see the ghostly figure watching them leave. But the porch was empty, the woods silent, and the cabin stood alone once more, waiting for its next visitors. If you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.